All right. We are talking about globally scaling applications today.
Yeah, it's not just to a certain extent, it's not just globally scaling, right? It's also about just scaling in general, right? Um, so with our traditional systems, our traditional monoliths systems, we tend to have a set of servers which will serve up the content, right? And from our talk last time, we talked about the multi-site deployments, but with the multi-site deployment kind of comes into this as well, right? Because as you add more sites, you add more load. You need to scale those servers, or you have some sort of event. You start to attract more people onto your sites. We've seen this with a lot of our customers, right? Because they have a sale or something like that. We had one healthcare customer a few months back where they started to offer the COVID vaccine, and the site just got overwhelmed because, hey, everybody wants to go and get the COVID vaccine, right? So demand goes through the roof. And so the traditional ways to scale this is to initially scale up. So you would try to add more RAM, more CPU, more bandwidth, and then you scale out. So you add more servers to that load. Now the problem is when you get to geoscaling, it becomes more tricky because you have customers throughout the globe, and if you have a multinational corporation, they're serving customers all over the globe, and they want each of those customers to have an equally great experience when coming to the site, right? And this is really just purely the laws of physics, right? The further you are away from a server, the longer it's going to take for that request to get served to you, right? It's like having a really long hose. If you have a really long hose and you turn it on at the tap, it's going to take a while for the water to come out the other end. And if you have a shorter hose, then it's going to come out much more quickly, right? The water's going to start to come out the other end much more quickly. Now, when you got a geoscale, I got to think about, I need more servers in all of these different locations. So I've got to scale up those servers. That's actually starting to cost me a lot of money. I then need people to manage those servers, right? So I need more people to manage those servers. I also need to worry about, like, if I'm doing the traditional virtual machines and stuff, I got to do updates and all of those kind of things, and deployments on top of that become more tricky from a code and infrastructure point of view. I've now got to think about deploying out to multiple different regions and load balancing and things like that. And we try to mitigate those as much as we can by using a CDN where we can, and that would generally be, we try to offload things like videos and some of the media and things like that. But the raw request is still coming from your main server, right? Because we are serving dynamic pages. There's no way around that. That request has to go back to that origin server, and that's just nature of how those traditional systems work. Now the Jamstack approach is slightly different, right? So we traditionally been using Vercel, but we've also used like Netlify a lot, and it's funny, right? Because some of our customers are very regional, but some of our customers are global. But even for the regional customers, they get the scaling out of the box. Like, I deployed to Vercel, I'm scaled to actually start to go global. Anybody who's visiting the site from Australia is going to have the same experience as somebody who's visiting the site from the US or North America. It's just scaled out of the box, and that's just the nature of the Jamstack approach. You're building out static pages, so there's no processing to do. So I can just I can replicate that across the globe into all of their content delivery network nodes, and everybody has it. It's just boom, it's ready to go. And add into that things like the incremental static regeneration, and then you have a bit of a best of both worlds scenario there, where you can have dynamic content being built for the site, but still being served as you would with static content. And I don't have to manage any of this. I just have my repo of code here. I have my headless CMS over there, and my DXPs wherever they are, composable components wherever they're sitting. And I just give it to Vassal, and Vassal will do the build and the deployments and the hosting and the content delivery network push, right?
Yeah.
And that's on top of all of the other benefits that we do get with the Jamstack approach, such as like higher security, lower costs, and better speed, right? So what we are doing essentially is using the CDNs, right? So depending on who your provider is, they will probably be piggybacking off another CDN provider who have all of these POP nodes all across the globe. So when a user is making a request, it's coming from their closest data center. So that delivery time isn't as long to that user. It's scaled, and then we can make. Well, we love using Azure Functions. You can use a number of the other providers also have edge worker functions. So any of the dynamic parts of your application, of your site, can still grab the dynamic data using those Azure functions. And again, those will scale really nicely, but just by the very nature of being serverless as well. So you get the static part of the site being deployed from the CDNs, you get the dynamic parts from whatever your serverless functions are. Gives you a truly global and infinitely scaled application without having to put in lots of infrastructure, put in lots of additional overhead on the architecture either. And at the end of the day, nobody likes to wait. Everybody just wants that really, really quick and fast delivery. Nobody wants to be waiting for waiting to get that web page served, right?
No, not at all. So like from scaling, being performant and cost efficient, one of the few of the things which every org needs, regardless of if it's the marketing guy asking for it or the developer asking for it. That's what the business needs. All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Camrose.